I'm Caroline, your host of the podcast Socially Different. In this podcast, we will be talking about life and the road less followed. We'll be talking about childhood trauma, healing, forgiveness, motherhood, because of course I am a mother. We'll be talking about mental disorders and how to overcome with God. We will be talking about a lot of topics that usually keep people in bondage for years and years. I have been able to go through some stuff at the age of 28, and God has graced me. He has given me wisdom and strategy to get through them. So I just want to share in hopes to help set someone free, and hopefully you guys can share with me, things that I don't know about these topics that God has shared with you. So let's get into it. So we finished off our Overcoming with God Anxiety series. So if you have not checked that out, the last 3 episodes are posted on YouTube and Spotify and Anchor. They are really good. I give you guys some tips, some strategies on how to overcome anxiety with God without medication. So if that is something that you are interested in, like I said, I wouldn't be sharing anything that I didn't go through. I experienced anxiety in 2019 really, really bad. And I just leaned on God, and He has healed me from that. He has delivered me from anxiety, which is just a spirit that's trying to get you down and trying to defeat you and doesn't want you to complete your purpose. It wants to get your mind, all messed up so that you don't know who you are. So if you have not watched that series, please go back and watch it. So today we will be talking about being socially different. This is what this podcast is really all about. I'm going to share my story a little bit about how I grew up in school and things that I have been through that has kind of led me to the person that I am now. And God has given me some understanding on why my path was the way it was. And some of you guys' path may be similar if you do feel socially different. So we are going to get right into it. So growing up, so as a child, for me, I always felt different. I always felt like I was out of place. I never felt like I was in with the other kids. And one of the reasons being, a lot of the kids at my schools all grew up in like the same neighborhood. So most of them grew up in the projects and things like that, which let me just say this, there's nothing wrong with growing up in the projects. But my mom, she didn't want to raise her children in the projects. So we kind of lived on the other side in a house. And I always felt like some kids, who grew up in the projects, most of them are products of their environment if they allow it to take them that way. So don't take that the wrong way if you grew up in the projects, because there are some, amazing people that come out of the projects. But some of them just allow it to, make them. But a lot of kids in the projects, a lot of them act the same, and a lot of them were mean, a lot of them were bullies, a lot of them thought that they were better than other people, and I was just the complete opposite. I was very quiet, like I said, to myself. I dressed different from them, my mom didn't really have us in Jordans and all that stuff. I never even really cared for that stuff anyways. Even now as an adult, I don't care for that stuff. So I was just always, there was some way that I was always different. My mindset was different. Like I said, it was just always different from them. And I can remember even in pre-K, I was bullied, starting from first grade. I remember there was a girl who, she was trying to impress this little boy, and we were all little, but it was just she was trying to impress this boy, and she poured milk on my head. And at that time, I remember this day, I sat in the cafeteria and I cried. And at that time, I wasn't as strong. I didn't know who I was. That wouldn't happen today. But back then, it was just I could just remember people bullying me. I felt always singled out. And then even when I got into middle school, when I started to become more of my own person, I could just see even more how I was different from the kids that went to my school. Like I said, most of them grew up in the projects. They were all very cliquey. I didn't grow up with them. They didn't really know me. When people don't know you, that's when they really start to speculate. I hated when we had to go to the lunchroom because I was always by myself. I remember being in a lunchroom in middle school. Sometimes I would sit by myself. I would hate it because it was just like, you just feel weird. And you could just feel like, okay, why am I always the one that don't have no friends? Or, I had a little friends, but, we didn't go to lunch together. So it was just like I was sitting by myself. And I can remember too, there was one time where we were doing like this thing at PE. There was like this running thing that they had for the school, and whoever won, they got to go to like this track thing and whatever. And I was already always athletic built. Like, even though I was quiet, I was like athletic built. I was good at, sports and running and stuff like that. So I remember running with my classmates, and we had to be the first ones to make it back. And there was this girl, and she was usually like the fastest, and she ran very well. And everybody was surprised that I was like in competition with her. I was going around, and I was actually about to beat her, but she ended up beating me. And she looked at me and she said, "Yeah, you thought that you were going to beat me." And I could just remember how mean kids were, and like how the devil, as I look back, I can remember how the devil wanted me to feel always like I was less than. And I know that we don't fight with flesh and blood. We fight with the principalities and the darkness. But at that time, I didn't understand that. But the devil will always try to remind me how I was different. And then moving on to high school, like, it was pretty much the same thing, but new levels, new devils. So it just really got worse. And like I mentioned before, like, I am an introvert. And so a lot of times, with introverts, we have social anxiety. At the time, I didn't understand that, but it's really a constant battle within ourselves to understand like why we are afraid to speak or be ourselves, or why we can't be talkative like other kids. But people would see it as like I was rude or stuck up or mean. How can a person that don't talk be mean? But that's just a whole nother story. But they would like really try to say that, and it was mostly the people that didn't know me. So like I said, a lot of the kids that grew up in the same neighborhood, so especially the girls, like, they didn't know me, so they just wanted to be mean, and they wanted to call me stuck up, or they didn't want to like me because their boyfriend liked me or something. It was just something, always something with girls. Like, I dress different, I act different, I talk different. A lot of people would joke me because my voice was squeaky. They said that I talked like a white person. Certain things, I'm just speaking my truth, but it was just always something when it came to me. Let's go on to my experience with friends. So with friends, it was just like, as I got older, like I said, when I was in school, like, I had few friends that understood me. They knew who I really was. They knew I was loving and kind. They knew I was just quiet, but they let me be me. But as I started to grow up, I had my son. Some of those same friends that I went to high school with, God started to remove them out of my life. And it was some friends that, some friends that I had even been friends with since middle school. God started to remove them as I started to really grow my confidence, as I started to become a business owner. I would see that a lot of those friends, they were not supportive. They were envious and jealous, and God gave me like a discernment for them. And I will always give people the benefit of the doubt, but when God keeps revealing, things to me about you, and that you don't really want the best for me, it's kind of like the relationship, it kind of falls apart. So that's what started to happen with my friends. And now, even to this day, I don't have many friends, and God has started, I feel like I've been in an isolation season all my life, but started in 2019, like when I started my business, that's when like I feel like I have been put in the isolation season more and more. And if you don't know what that season is, it's basically what it says, the isolation season, where God starts to pluck off people in your life that doesn't mean you well. He may, break your relationship up, and he may tell you that you have to be single for a season. It's just a season where it's just kind of like you and God. You ain't really going nowhere. You're supposed to be in your word, trying to draw closer to him, because in that isolation season, he really wants you to draw closer to him so that you can know who he is. If you're not distracted by the world, if you're not distracted by relationships and friends and things like that, you're able to draw near to him. And what I've noticed in this season as well is that he has given me, even though he has taken away the friends that, don't mean me any good, he has brought me some friends that want to grow in Christ and who are serious about me, who really care about me, and vice versa. Okay, so let's talk about relationships as it relates to being socially different, being chosen. So that's just the point that I'm getting to. So God has revealed to me that I was raised off of survival. So, being raised off of survival, your parents, they provided for you. They made sure you had what you needed. They worked and things like that. But as far as the kisses and hug and emotional support, they didn't really show that because they weren't shown that growing up. So they didn't know how to. So, being raised off of survival, being rejected by family and friends all my life, it's like when I get in relationships, I'm trying to prove my worth to this person. And I'm worthy all by myself. That's what God has shown me. And hopefully He has, revealed to you that as well. You're worthy all by yourself, and you don't have to prove your worth to anyone. They will see your worth and how good of a person you are when they get with you. And then also, these relationships that I've been in, I noticed that it was like, this person's spirit was always fighting against my spirits. Like the devil would, send people to try to knock me off my purpose, or try to hinder me, delay me, or try to make me feel like I'm not worthy, or, try to stop me from seeing who God really has called me to be. So all of these relationships were like, it was like a constant battle. They're trying to make me choose between God and them, and it shouldn't be that way. So being in these unequally yoked relationships have really grew me and made me wiser, definitely in my word and my knowledge and understanding who I am. So God always uses like bad situations in our life. We see that they are bad, but He uses them and He turns them into good if we just allow Him. So let's move on to understanding the why. So I shared a little bit about my story. So I'm pretty sure if you are watching this, your story is kind of similar. So what I had to understand, that God was just training me up to be His chosen. And I was always meant to not fit in. That's why I didn't fit in. I was never meant to fit into the world. And as I look back of how God has orchestrated my life and how He has strengthened me for a time like this, because now I'm sharing the good news. Now I'm on bigger platforms in my business where I'm in front of people, and people speculate, people call you names, people say hateful things in the comments, but now I'm strong, and this is not anything new to me. People have been doing this to me my whole life, so I can just, brush my shoulders off and keep going. But I am now able to fight in the spirit as well, instead of fighting with my hands. And as we can see, like, God will hide you sometimes in plain sight. So we go to Joseph. His brothers sold him off into slavery because he said he was having dreams that he would, basically rule over them. And it was like, who do you think you are to be telling us that? They thought he was stuck up. They thought that he was better. And they sold him off, and he went to Egypt. And then even in Egypt, he was lied on. He was thrown into prison. But Joseph had to keep being obedient to God's plan. And in the end, he was restored to his rightful place in the kingdom. And everybody was able to see that he was who he said he was. And as we can see with Jesus, he was healing people, he was helping people, but people were still saying that he wasn't the Messiah. People were still calling him mean things. People were still just, basically going against him. But at the end, he restored humanity, and God, revealed His purpose through His Son. So that's the same thing that God does with us. And we feel different. We feel like, why am I the outcast? Why am I this and that? But if you continue to press into God and you continue to be obedient, and if you have always felt different all your life, I advise you to dig deeper. I advise you to look back over your life. I advise you to ask God, because sometimes it doesn't come easy, and it's hurtful. It's definitely hurtful when it's not only just people that don't know you, but it can also be family as well, which I didn't really touch on, but it could be family as well that rejects you, especially if you are the generational curse breaker. It's a lot of stuff that goes into being God's chosen, but you have to dig deeper in God and get revelation for yourself about who you are, and it will all become clear when you understand who you are. It's easier for you to walk with your head higher and knowing that God got you, and that there's something special about you, and you have something in you that can help other people. That is the end of this episode. I hope you guys took in this information. Please share with me you guys' stories about you growing up and how it was for you being a chosen one. I always love to connect with people like me, because I feel like growing up, I didn't have a lot of people around who understood how I felt. So we will be back with another episode on Wednesday. Let me know how you guys enjoyed this one, and I will see you guys on the next one.